In 2013, the now infamous video footage of Elisa Lam, shortly before her passing, captured the attention of millions around the world. In the 12 years following her mysterious disappearance and death, some of the questions surrounding her passing have been answered, while others remain a mystery. Hello everyone, and welcome to Lisa Explains It All, a true crime, mystery, and art history podcast. And welcome to episode 6, the Elisa Lam Case Revisited. And before we get into this week's case, I am going to head on over to Reddit for the first segment of the episode, per usual, where someone asks, Reddit, what's your craziest elevator story? So I have my bevanda of the day with me, which today is a dirty chai latte that I made myself. So let's jump off into the deep end here, and a coworker and I got on at the 12th floor. Shortly after it started going down, the elevator suddenly stopped. I said, "Oh my God, we're free falling." And the other guy about died. All the color left his face, and I had to immediately say I was kidding. We were stopped. Oh boy. Okay. I got into an elevator with Gwen Stefani one time. It was pretty exciting. She had a massive bodyguard with her. And then another person said they were in an elevator with Jack Palance once. Okay, interesting. Celebrities in elevators. Didn't expect that. Okay, next. Okay. Not me, but my friend. Elevator stopped in her apartment building. She called the emergency line and they said they were on their way, etc. It was taking them ages to get there, so my friend empties her purse onto the elevator floor and starts organizing her stuff while singing very loudly. She's really getting into her song at this point when she suddenly gets a weird feeling. She looks up to find the elevator doors have been pried open and that the building manager and elevator technicians had been there for quite a while. I guess they didn't want to interrupt. Yeah, I guess not. Okay, next. I misdialed and the guy that answered said he was in an elevator. He was super freaked out. Next. I was at a convention at a hotel, and there were tons of people waiting at the area near the lobby that held 4 elevators. I would have taken the stairs, but they were ridiculously hard to find. Anyway, I get in one of the elevators, the space inside packed to the gills. The buttons on the elevator panel indicated that it should be stopping at 2 or 3 different floors. But instead of proceeding upwards in an orderly fashion, the elevator decided to go up and down, stopping at random floors. Yikes. Most of the people in the elevator seemed amused by its random behavior, but there was just a tinge of nervousness in people's laughter. I think a couple people just got too freaked out by the elevator's erratic behavior and fled from the damn thing when it stopped at the door and the doors opened, whether or not it was the floor the person needed. I finally got to my floor, but had to endure the elevator going up to floor 7, down to floor 3, and up again to floor 5. I made sure to avoid that particular elevator for the rest of the convention. Sounds like an absolute nightmare. Okay, and second to last story. Here we go. During high school, we were in a hotel in some other city because we were there for some competition. I'm going down the elevator and I'm just chilling out. Then genius 17-year-old me asked the rather important question, what happens if you force the elevator door open slightly? What could you see? This led to me This led to me prying open the elevator door, opened from the center outwards, technically 2 doors, I guess, about a solid 2 inches. This was decidedly a bad move because the elevator immediately halted in place. Oh my gosh. It was then I realized the elevator was stuck and the door open button wouldn't work. I couldn't really see what was through the 2-inch gap, but it wasn't very interesting. So now I realize I'm stuck and calmly call my friends to tell the front desk so they could do something about the elevator. They go to the ground floor elevator and pry it open from their side. It was then we learned my elevator had stopped about 1 to 2 feet above the ground floor. This allowed me to safely hop out and act like I had no idea why it stopped. My high school self lacked a bit of common sense. Youths. Okay, last story. Oh boy, do I have one for the books. Complete with video. Which I guess I will link if I can. Okay. Alright. The year is 2012. We're at PAX East in Boston. It's the morning of the first day. Myself and 13 others in lab coats and a couple of homemade biohazard suits for a thing we were doing. The keynote is supposed to be wrapping up, and our plans involve crashing the next panel. A few of our friends are in the theater and in communication over group text. We enter the BCEC from the Sky Bridge connected to the Westin, and I veer us towards elevator B10. I indicate that if anybody's looking when we exit the elevator outside the theater, it will be an impressive entrance. We get in. I press the button for the 3rd floor. The elevator moves a bit, then stops. The buttons are out. I text our waiting friends and let them know that we may need to stall, and we place a call with the phone in the elevator. We get in contact with the people on the other end, who promise a tech to get us out soon. We heard various estimates throughout the time we were in there. None were accurate. Eventually, we have to shift to using my cell phone for the call because the elevator phone disconnects after 10 minutes. We can hear the elevator next to us going up and down, taunting us with its operational status. Did I mention there were 14 of us in there? Because there were. It was getting hot. The AC was out. We asked if they could get it running. They said yes, but they never did. Eventually, you can see condensation dripping from the walls. Ugh. We eventually break into song to keep our sanity. Now our friends are waiting on the outside. Our original timing had us walking up and getting staged to come in about 10 minutes into the panel. By pure luck, the keynote before it is running long. Every time we text with our updated estimates, we're told the keynote is still going on. After 45 minutes, an elevator tech finally shows up, jumps around in the shaft a bit, and the interior door opens. The voice on the phone tells us how to manually open the outside door, and we do. Sweet freedom, as a wall of cold air hits us in the face as we hop out of the elevator and back onto the floor we departed. The elevator had only risen 1 foot before breaking down. The keynote just ended, also 45 minutes late. We took the stairs up and got ready to do our thing. And then postscript, one of our guys was wearing a GoPro on his chest to record the thing at the panel, but ended up catching the entire 45 minutes in the elevator as well. So I will link that in the show notes if you would like to go take a look. Well, thank you, Reddit, as always. Well, I'm going to have some nightmares about elevators, and you know what? Maybe I'll meet a celebrity in my dream. Who knows? And now back to this week's episode topic, the Elisa Lam Case Revisited. And I got the majority of the information for this episode from the Netflix series Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. So go check it out. It's a great series. Now let's get into the case. In 2013, Elisa Lam, 21-year-old college student from Vancouver, Canada, embarked on a journey to travel from the West Coast. According to her posts on Tumblr, this had been a wish of hers for some time. She was traveling alone, and after spending a few days in San Diego, she arrived in Los Angeles on January 28th. January 31st would be the last date that her family back in Canada hears from her. Elisa Lam had no prior similar behavior to this, and her family became very worried. Shortly after, the LAPD Robbery and Homicide Division began investigating this as a possible missing persons case. 18 robbery and homicide detectives began working on the case. Elisa's family said she would usually call them on a daily basis. They became very concerned after not hearing from her for a few days. The family felt like something was urgently wrong. Detectives began to try to figure out what happened to her. And at this point, she was still considered a missing person. There were several possibilities of what was going on. Police began to investigate whether or not she was disoriented and lost, or did not want to be found. They also began to investigate the possibility that she might have been the victim of a crime or accident. Elisa Lam's family told investigators that she had been staying at the Cecil Hotel. A large number of LAPD homicide detectives went to the Cecil Hotel to investigate. They began looking for clues and witnesses. Investigators discovered that she checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 28, 2013, for an approximately 4-day stay. She was staying in room 506, which was a female bunk room with community bathrooms and showers. This type of room was $85 a night. She was scheduled to check out on February 1st, the day that she was reported missing. When LAPD began to search her room, they found that hotel staff had removed her belongings. According to the Cecil Hotel, this was protocol when a guest didn't check out. Their belongings would then be placed in storage for 30 days. It was also at this time that LAPD discovered that her laptop, prescription medication, valuable items, including her clothing and wallet, had been left behind. The room was messy, and however, it did not appear that there was any sign of foul play or narcotics. Investigators would later say that something felt off. At this point, LAPD had no leads. They needed to find witnesses and first-hand accounts of what happened. At this time, there were 50 employees working at the Cecil Hotel. Late shift employees told investigators that Elisa Lam was seen in an area of the Cecil Hotel where guests were not allowed. She was last seen walking towards the elevators after she had been asked to leave. According to her posts on Tumblr, she was in San Diego, California from January 22nd to the 27th. And Tumblr was her social media platform of choice. While in San Diego, she went to the taping of a TV show, and she was also open to meeting up with people. Investigators now wanted to see if she met up with anyone. On February 1st, the day she was reported missing, Elisa Lam visited a bookstore called The Last Bookstore. Bookstore employees remembered seeing her, and they remember her being friendly and outgoing. And 5 days after she had been initially reported missing, LAPD still had no leads. They had no trace of where she is. On her 6th day of being missing, investigators held a press conference featuring her family. They began to try to get help from the public. Investigators were looking for a person of interest in the area of LA and the Cecil Hotel. LAPD became aware that the Cecil Hotel had security camera footage. However, there were no cameras on her floor. Investigators had days and hundreds of hours worth of footage to review. It was, quote, like looking for a needle in a haystack. Cameras were not all placed in ideal locations, and some of the footage was low quality. Eventually, after sifting through the footage, investigators discovered that a security camera captured Elisa Lam standing in an elevator on the night of her disappearance. Quote, her behavior is unusual, an investigator would later state. Investigators watched the security camera footage and tried to figure out where she went and if she was with anyone on the day of her disappearance. Furthermore, there is no security camera footage of Elisa Lam leaving the Cecil Hotel. 1 week after she was first reported missing, investigators searched throughout the entire hotel because there was no footage of her leaving. They wanted to try to find her as soon as possible, as they feared she would be in harm's way if she was still living. Approximately 14 LAPD investigators performed a thorough search of the hotel. They had one night to search the entire hotel, and they looked everywhere a body could be found. They also brought in scent tracking dogs. Elisa's scent was traced at a 5th floor window leading to the fire escape. However, the scent was lost. At this time, LAPD searched the roof and found nothing. This included using the LAPD Air Support Division. And this search of the hotel did not lead to any real findings. And LAPD was back to square one. They needed the public's help. The video of Elisa inside of the elevator was released to the public 13 days after her disappearance. The 4-minute video was released to the LAPD website, and everyone was immediately captivated by it. The doors open. Elisa Lam walks into the elevator. She is swinging one arm in the air. She bends over casually and looks at the panel. She then presses the entire center row of buttons. She steps to the back corner of the elevator. She looks calm. She pokes her head out of the door and looks in both directions. She steps back into the elevator and seems to hide into a corner by the door. She continues to look out from inside of the elevator. Next, she puts her head outside the door and looks around the corner to the right several times. She steps outside of the elevator and pops into the hallway. She is moving in an almost square dance-like step formation in the doorway several times. She walks out of the door towards the left and becomes invisible to the camera. At this point, all you see is her arm. The elevator is not moving. Elisa Lam presses more buttons. She runs her fingers through her hair, almost in a state of stress. She is moving her hands in a way that has been described as strange and erratic. She is waving her hands and twisting and turning her body. She also appears to be counting with her fingers. She then exits to the left of the elevator. The elevator is now empty for the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, the video is 4 minutes long in total. The door never shuts while she is in the elevator. Once she is out of the elevator, the door shuts right away. The door opens again. The elevator seems to be operating normally now that she is gone. The video ends after 3 minutes and 59 seconds. This video almost immediately went viral, with people all across the country trying to solve the mystery. 2 weeks after she was first reported missing, the LAPD is still looking for help from the public. The online community went into a frenzy. Quote, web sleuths began to search through her Tumblr posts. People were talking about the case on YouTube and on other online forums. It was discovered after sifting through some of her posts on Tumblr that she was suffering from bipolar disorder and depression. Furthermore, the LAPD did not believe that Elisa Lam appeared to be inebriated from alcohol in the elevator video. They did think, however, that she may have been on mind-altering drugs based on her hand movements in the video. It was a known fact that there were drug issues at the Cecil Hotel. There was basically an open-air drug market right outside of the door of the hotel, and the LAPD began investigating if she might have used drugs during her stay. At this point, investigators interviewed females that she had been sharing a room with at the Cecil Hotel. Before her disappearance, her roommates complained about her behavior. Hotel staff moved Elisa Lam into a room by herself. After conducting more interviews, the LAPD discovered that her behavior had been unusual for a few days prior to her disappearance. Investigators believed that she was vulnerable, and they were looking for a suspect who might have harmed her. Also, according to her Tumblr posts, Elisa Lam experienced unwanted male attention while in LA. The online community and investigators began to wonder if she was harmed by someone that she met while she was in LA. It is also important to note that Elisa Lam only knew that she was staying at a place called the Stay on Main, which had been modernized and designed for young tourists. She did not know that she was staying at the Cecil Hotel or that the elevators inside of the new section of the Cecil Hotel, called the Stay on Main, connected with the old section of the Cecil Hotel. Now, getting back to the elevator video, another issue that has been frequently brought up is that the timestamp is very difficult to read. People begin to wonder, why edit the video so that the timestamp is impossible to read? People also begin to wonder, why was the video slowed down and altered? It was also discovered that 53 seconds of the video footage is missing. Were the edits done by the hotel before it was handed over to the police? Was this done by a hotel employee as part of some kind of cover-up within the hotel? To this day, the Cecil Hotel claims that they never edited the footage. Now, jumping ahead in the timeline, guests of the Cecil Hotel began to notice low water pressure along with dark brown water coming out of the faucet. Hotel guests used this water to brush their teeth, shower, and even drink. These guests complained to hotel management. These water issues persisted and even began to occur on multiple floors. Hotel management said that maintenance would look into the problem. There were 4 water tanks located on the roof of the Cecil Hotel. Maintenance figured there was either a clog or no water in the tank. A custodial worker climbed up a ladder, opened a latch, and looked inside the main tank that circulates water throughout the hotel. He looked inside of the tank and saw the body of Elisa Lam floating face up on the top of the water. Her body was severely decomposed and her clothing was found at the bottom of the tank. She was ghost-like in appearance. It was later determined that she had been in the tank for 19 days. The water in this tank had been used by hundreds of hotel guests. Cecil Hotel management told staff not to communicate with the media, and the hotel was immediately shut down. Hotel guests were reassigned to other hotels. LAPD thought they had checked the roof. At this point, investigators said Elisa Lam's death was suspicious but not a homicide. There were no suspects or arrests made. Investigators drained the tank and then removed her body by cutting an access point into the side of the tank. They searched for fingerprints but found nothing. Investigators believed that there was no evidence to suggest a violent crime occurred. Questions immediately began to arise as to how did Elisa Lam find herself on the roof. The elevator from the video was located on the 14th floor, which was 1 floor below the roof. There has been a lot of debate as to whether she climbed onto the roof using the exterior fire escape or the fire exit door. After looking through the CCTV footage from the hotel, investigators discovered that Elisa Lam appears on another video along with 2 males. However, it was discovered that these males had no malicious intent. They were simply delivering her a box from the last bookstore. Many questions began to arise after her body was discovered inside of the water tank. Was she alone when she climbed onto the roof? Did she open the water tank by herself? The water tank lid is 20 pounds. How could she have held it and then climbed into the tank by herself? Was she on a controlled substance at the time? And again, according to her posts on Tumblr, she suffered from bipolar disorder and depression. She also wrote on her Tumblr that she was having thoughts of self-harm. Furthermore, according to the medical examiner, the clothing found in the tank matched what she was wearing in the elevator video. It was also ruled possible that she died soon after the elevator footage was captured. Unfortunately, the medical examiner could not determine how long she had been in the water tank. Her body had no external wounds, and there was also no indication of SA. There was no evidence of internal or external injuries that could have been fatal. No cause of death was issued at this time. The medical examiner was waiting for the toxicology results. It would be months before the autopsy results were released to the public. Eventually, the toxicology results would come back negative for illicit drugs and alcohol. There was no evidence that she overdosed on prescription drugs. The only drug in her system that was present was what she was prescribed for bipolar disorder at a low level. She had been undertaking her bipolar medications. Investigators discovered that shortly before her disappearance, Lam went to a taping of a show while in LA. She wrote a long note to the host of the show. She demanded that her letter be given to the host. She was then asked to leave as they thought she might be a security risk. Prior to her death, she had been writing disturbing notes to other guests, such as "go away," and leaving the notes on their beds. She had exhibited erratic behavior in the days before her death, including stating, quote, "I'm crazy, but so is LA," end quote, in the lobby of the hotel. 4 months after her death, on June 21st, 2013, Elisa Lam's autopsy results were released to the public. Her death was ruled an accident due to drowning, and her bipolar disorder is listed as a contributing factor. According to her family, she had a history of not taking her medication. She had also been hospitalized in the past. And lastly, people were still calling into question the issue of the water tank lid. Was the tank lid closed when she was found? People still thought foul play might be involved. At the wrongful death trial, a maintenance employee testified that the hatch door was open when he found her body. This was new information and contradicted his previous testimony that the lid had been closed. Based on this new information, many believe that the death of Elisa Lam was a tragic accident. However, because the details surrounding her death are so mysterious, questions will always remain. And that is the story of the tragic death of Elisa Lam. She is truly gone too soon, and my heart goes out to her family and loved ones. And before I close out this week's episode, I am going to leave you with a quote from Elisa Lam's Tumblr page. "Depression sucks. Period. If someone says to you they have depression, don't ask why. There is no why. Don't say, 'Stop being sad.' That is not helpful. Just be around and make sure they eat and go outside. Remind them every day it will get better. Tell them every day you love them and losing them will be unbearable. There is nothing else you can do." Thank you for listening, everyone, and take care.